breathtaking, right? Nothing less than breathtaking and leaning into the very mystery of murmuration that we were speaking to earlier. Thank you, Laurel Jenkins and her intergenerational cast of dancers. Thank you. And thank you, David Haughey, for this remarkable cello playing. Brilliant, a brilliant beginning to our afternoon, which will have more of the same pageantry. Thank you all for keeping your attention with us, for being nourished at lunch and finding friends and commenting together about this communion, as Mary Evelyn instructed, and remaining with this attention of a sacred day and celebration. All right, let's settle in for the afternoon. One that I mentioned will have more dance and music and artistry, storytelling, and a final ceremony. But first, in honor of the Charter's 25th anniversary, Earth Charter International has prepared a special declaration to recontextualize the Charter as a compass for global transformation, nothing less. And today we have 4 members of the Earth Charter International Council with us: Michael Bracken, Sam Crowell, Song Lee, and Rick Clugston. Each will now briefly read from this declaration that was released just recently. We'll start with Michael Bracken.
The Earth Charter International Council declares that it is urgent to reorient the political, social, and cultural systems toward a vision that recognizes the ecological limits of the planet and places the well-being of all living things at the center.
The Earth Charter strengthen and embrace as a living reference to public policies, legal frameworks, and education at all levels.
Young people, as bearers of the present and builders of the future, must be heard, supported, and recognized as protagonists of transformation.
That international cooperation, intercultural dialogue, and ancestral wisdom are indispensable for addressing the current challenges with unity and hope.
From this 25th anniversary onward, the Earth Charter International Council commits to intensifying its work to strengthen networks of transformative education inspired by the Earth Charter.
To foster its integration into legislative processes, government programs, and international agreements.
Support ethical, creative, and committed youth leadership.
And to expand alliances with social movements, indigenous peoples, academic institutions, multilateral bodies, and businesses with a regenerative vision. We firmly believe that another world is possible. May the spirit of the Earth Charter become an active force, a living word, and an ethical covenant for present and future generations.
Thank you, Michael, Rick, Sung Lee, and Sam. Really appreciate all the distance that you've traveled to be here today. So thank you, all of you, for your attention and your time, and this beautiful phrase that Mandy just gave us of aggressive generosity, right? That's Vermont. That's our new sticker, everybody. Vermonters are aggressively generous. I love that. I love that. That's our type of aggression, is in generosity. That's our trade. I don't know of anybody more aggressively generous than Bill McKibben. He asked me to keep it short. I can't keep it that short. But as we know, Bill needs no introduction to a Vermont audience. Yet how fortunate we are to have him in our midst, right? Talk about a North Star, always a North Star, ripped-in star in our midst. Many know Bill as having founded the largest climate movement in history, 350.org. A project that began on the Middlebury campus with 18 and 19-year-old people. And many now know of Bill's third act, his effort to galvanize the generational power of people over 60 to safeguard the climate and democracy. I love that, and democracy. Bill's current project, as Gus has already heckled out, is Sunday, based on his book, Here Comes the Sun, a call to realign the power of the sun, ourselves with the power of the sun, and to insist that this moment, despite or perhaps because of its challenges, is also full of possibility. Author, activist, teacher, leader, Bill has dedicated himself, indeed his lifetime, to Earth stewardship and the principles we celebrate today. Please help me in welcoming Bill McKibben with a shout out, Sunday. Sunday.
Amy, old friend, thank you so much. So good to see so many old friends here, including many that I saw 25 years ago when we were here to help launch all this stuff in this room. A lot has changed for me since then, some of it for the better. My daughter Sophie, who then was a third grader, dressed up as an animal in the parade of kids who were showing the beauty of the world. Well, I got to go for a hike up a mountain yesterday with her son, my grandson, so that's good news. And yeah, as Amy said, since then, in those quarter century, I've written a dozen books and been to jail a dozen times, and with the help of so many others, done my part to help build movements. Every time I come to Shelburne Farms, I think of that march in 2006 up the western side of Vermont. There's lots of people there who were here, who were there, and who remember spending the night before we marched into Burlington to see then Congressman Bernie Sanders and everybody else out here in the fields at Shelburne Farms. And yes, gone on to help form 350.org and Third Act and a lot of other things. So I'm definitely more tired than I was then. A lot's changed for the planet, mostly not for the best. There's far, far less ice on our globe than there was. There are higher and stormier seas. The level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is about more than 50 parts per million higher than it was then. Many tens of millions of people have been forced from their homes already because it's just impossible to live where they live anymore. In fact, we now see brutal heat waves almost every year around the globe with temperatures that we wouldn't really have even been able to imagine 25 years ago, where it's 125, 126, 128 degrees in the cities where people are living. And of course, a lot has changed for our country. With many others, I'm sure, I remember that it was the day after our gathering here to launch the Earth Charter that the planes crashed into the World Trade Center on 9/11, and some of the darkness that we felt then has deepened and spread. There's never been, in my lifetime, a more desperate moment in our country. Our democracy is flickering and faltering, and that is scary and intense. And I don't mean to lessen it in any way. I wake up at 3 a.m. most nights now, just worrying about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But amidst all those big bad things, there is one big good thing happening on this planet, and it is both big enough and good enough that with some luck, it may take at least some bite out of both that crisis of the climate and that crisis of authoritarianism. And that one big good thing really started about 36 months ago with the just sudden and remarkable surge in the use of clean energy from the sun and the wind all over this planet. Something that many of us have been waiting for a very long time, but which finally achieves a kind of spectacular takeoff. And when we see what's happened even in those 3 years, we get some sense of what's possible. 25 years ago, China was in the rapid ascent phase of its industrialization, nearing the moment when it would pass the US as the biggest emitter of carbon dioxide, building one coal-fired power plant after another. Now, as of the last 3 years, China is on the verge of being not a petrostate, but an electrostate, and the first one on planet Earth. May, the last month for which we have good numbers, China was putting up 3 gigawatts of solar panels a day, a gigawatt being the rough equivalent of a large coal-fired power plant. So one of those worth of solar panels was going up every 8 hours across China. In California, which has hit some kind of tipping point, almost every day for the last year, the state has generated more than 100% of its electricity for long stretches of the day from clean energy. That means that at night when the sun goes down, the biggest source of supply to the grid in California is now often batteries that have spent the afternoon soaking up excess sunshine. Those batteries didn't exist 3 years ago. California, 4th largest economy in the world, is using 40% less natural gas to produce electricity this year than they were 2 years ago. Okay? That's the single most hopeful number I've heard, I think, in the 40 years that I've been at work on this. That's the kind of number that spread quickly around the world would begin to shave 1/10 of a degree off how hot this planet gets. And remember, every 1/10 of a degree that we raise the temperature moves 100 million of our brothers and sisters from a comfortable climate zone into a dangerous one. So the possibility, finally, of having something not that will stop global warming, it is too late for that, but something that scales fast enough to at least give us a tool to have some leverage, some wedge, some way forward. That is, I think, very, very good news. Now, People will say, with some justification, isn't this just a technical fix and not a fix in our culture and our psyche and all of that? And in some ways, yes. But it is a very different technology in ways that really should start to sink in. You do have to go do some mining to make it happen. You have to go mine, say, some lithium, and we should do it as humanely and environmentally soundly as we possibly can. But once you've mined some lithium and put it in a battery, there it sits for 25 years doing its job. When the battery degrades, we now know how to recycle it, take the lithium out, start all over again. If you go mine some coal, what do? You set it on fire, and tomorrow you have to go mine some more. That's why the Rocky Mountain Institute, or their old friend Amory Lovins, said last September that all the mining required for this transition by the middle of the century would be smaller than the volume of coal we mined on this planet last year. That's a big change. A boatload worth, here's a way to picture it in your mind, a boatload worth of solar panels crossing the ocean, say, to America, would, over its lifetime, produce 500 times as much energy as the same boat filled with coal. That is a different world. Beyond that, it's also a different thing because it's energy from the sun, which is available to everyone, everywhere. Sun and wind, which is just another form of solar power. The sun heats the earth differentially, producing the breeze that turns those majestic turbines. Think about what that means. Think about, say, how the geopolitics of our world would have been different in the last century, the last 70 years, if oil had been of relatively trivial value in that period. Think how many wars, coups, assassinations, terrorist plots we would have avoided. Humans are very good at fighting wars, but it will be difficult even for humans to figure out how to fight a war over sunshine. And beyond that, to go to the kind of deepest level of who we are and where we are on this planet, beyond that, again, this energy comes from the sun, from the most charismatic thing in our universe. Is there a human being alive who does not grin when the sun comes out from behind the clouds and hits you in the shoulders? All of a sudden, a very, very, well, I mean, I remain a bit of a Methodist Sunday school teacher. Energy from heaven, not from hell, you know? That's our mantra. But if we want it, we have to fight for it, at least here. The rest of the world right now is very much on this S-curve, booming upwards, figuring out all the advantages, doing it really fast. Day after day, we get news stories. Last week, Indonesia, fourth largest country in the world, said they're going to put in 100 gigawatts of solar power in the next 5 years. Partly because they don't want to depend on a country as erratic and fickle as ours for the supply of natural gas that they would otherwise use, but partly because they understand and believe that the fight for a workable climate runs through this new energy. But here, of course, Donald Trump is trying everything he can to shut it down in every way. Last week, the federal government put a stop work order on a wind farm off the coast of Rhode Island that's 90% complete, built and paid for. If they succeed, it will last for a long time as a kind of, marine Stonehenge, just kind of staying there as tribute to our folly. If Trump succeeds in what he's doing and can keep it up for a long time, the world will stay on course, but we won't. And those people who can still get tourist visas to visit our country will come here in a few years to gawk at a kind of colonial Williamsburg of internal combustion, get a look at how people did it back in the olden days, okay? Even though it was all invented here, okay? The first solar cell in Edison, New Jersey in 1954, the first commercial wind turbine 50 miles south of here in the 1940s on Grandpa's Knob in Vermont, which, by the way, makes me sad every time I think about the de facto moratorium on wind power that this state has had in place for the last decade. So, if we're going to fight for it, we have to fight together. I stand by those words about the most important thing that an individual can be is a little bit less of an individual, that we need to join together with others in order to change the rules of the game so we can move at speed. Hence, Sunday, 2 weeks from today, on September 21st. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of events all over the country designed to do, well, in legislative terms, the things that we can still do without the federal government. That involves a lot of trying to get cities and states to loosen the permitting requirements, say, for putting solar on your roof. 3.5 or 4 million Europeans in the last 2 years have installed in their apartments what we call balcony solar. They just go to the local Best Buy or whatever they call it in Stuttgart and come home with 200 euros poorer with a solar panel designed to hang off the balcony of their apartment. They just plug it into the wall with a standard plug, and they're generating 20–25% of the energy that they use. That is illegal every place in this country, except in that progressive bastion, the state of Utah, whose state legislature unanimously passed enabling legislation earlier this year. And now you can go on YouTube and see pictures of happy Utahns sticking solar panels on their apartment balconies all over the place. We can do that kind of thing everywhere. But along with that legislative goal, the other goal is simply to drive home the notion that this is no longer what we've called it for the last 40 years, alternative energy. This is the common sense, straightforward, and very beautiful way to power the planet going forward. I was in Addison County a year ago, April, when we had the eclipse here, which was arguably the biggest thing that ever happened in Vermont, the biggest traffic jams we ever had anyway, but they were very happy traffic jams, everybody in a good mood because it was been the most remarkable spectacle. I was on the Middlebury campus, and I was out there with 1,500 students who put down their phones for an hour and just watched the beauty of the sun. It was fantastic. And a reminder of who we are. I stole the title for this new book of mine, Here Comes the Sun, from George Harrison. And when I went to Spotify to look at it, it turns out that Here Comes the Sun is by far the most streamed of all the songs in the vast Beatles catalog. Twice as many people a day listening to it as listen to Hey Jude or Let It Be or any of the other great songs. And the reason, I think, is that gentle but optimistic song captures something that we very much want on this very dark planet in this very dark time, which is some connection, again, to the larger world around us and to that sun which rises every day and gives us energy that can't be hoarded, that can't be held in reserve, that won't make anybody fabulously wealthy, but that will make all of us together what we are, brothers and sisters on a beautiful, beautiful planet. Let's do what we can to make it so. See you on Sunday. Thanks.